Global warming is something that is such a hot topic today that I don't even really want to talk about it. People get very emotional about this issue. I personally don't want to believe that global warming is real because the thought that it might be real is very scary for me because it's something that is so far out of my control. But as a scientist, I have to at least consider the possibility and look at the stuff that's out there and assess it for myself. You've heard that global warming is a hoax. What if global warming hoax is a hoax? What if the bankers are trying to shyster us again? I found some interesting information when I went on the EPA website. I was looking at how we are dealing with methane, and because my dad told me that it's 10 to 25 times more greenhouse gas than CO2. And I actually found an interesting little piece of information that said there are some bankers. These bankers are investing in clean energy and restricting methane. Well, methane actually, when I looked into it, is very scary. It's got at least 3 different main places that it comes from, okay? It comes from, first of all, animal flatulence. Yeah, cows, goats, sheep, they burp or they pass gas, and methane comes, at least a third of the methane that gets released comes from animals like this. So that's one way it comes from. Another place is from, of course, the coal plants. There's no such thing as clean coal. This is what my dad tells me, but methane is a big emission from those. And that makes sense because coal is made of hydrocarbons and methane is simply a CH4, one carbon with a bunch of hydrogens. So if you burn up hydrocarbons and they break up into little pieces, that's what you would probably get is a lot of methane and ethane, possibly different types of gas like that. Another place that methane comes from, this is the scary one, okay, is methane hydrate. And it's a frozen like ice form, and it's under the ocean and under the Arctic glaciers. Now, I don't really hear about this much in the mainstream news or the alternative news. I always hear about CO2. I always hear about carbon credits. I always hear about, how it's a hoax. But methane, like, where did this come from? My dad's the one that mentioned it to me. He was trained in the Air Force as a meteorologist. So he was doing weather research and learning all about the science of weather probably back in the 70s or 80s. In the Air Force when around the time I was born and young. And so he really is very passionate about his concern for methane hydrate. And that's why I had to look into this. Because my dad is an intelligent man and I can't totally ignore him, even though I don't want to believe in global warming. So what I did find is that the EPA, they have all these carbon calculators on their website. They also do have this Methane Global Initiative, and it's bankers who are doing it. So that needs to raise a flag for us right there. The bankers are investing in clean energy, okay, and methane reduction. Now, let's just say that, maybe the bankers do really run the world, and maybe there are some people that are very greedy that don't think a lot about what happens to the earth, and they don't really think about people either. They're opportunists. They're the type of people that would say, oh, let's sell the ability to make carbon dioxide. Whether global warming is real or not, that's not a really environmentally sound way of dealing with the problem or the fake problem. It's just obviously a money-making ploy. So when you look at the people that are making the money, bankers, and you see, I'm not saying these particular bankers are evil, but that's where their money is going. So that's something to consider. Now, a little bit about the science behind this, okay? I'm going to show you this little map of the world that I drew. I really hope you can see it. Okay, good. You see the Earth, and I drew it badly, and the poles. Now, over the last 60 years, there's been an average temperature increase of 1.5 to 3 degrees, more at the poles than in the middle of the Earth. So that's something to consider. Also, CO2 has gone up about 20%. Why is it always there? And Siberia and the Antarctic and the Arctic, the ice on them is starting to, instead of being there for year after year after year after year, it's like getting to the point where one scientist, who is a Professor Peter Wadhams of Cambridge, he thinks that the Arctic and the Antarctic will be totally melted each year by 2015, meaning it's going to become seasonal. It's not going to be permafrost anymore. My dad, he did his own calculations based on the average increase of CO2 and all of that, and he thinks that could happen as late as like 2047 or before. Now, another scientist said she thinks it's a 50-50 chance that'll even occur. Well, 50-50 chance is still a pretty big chance. So what happens if this ice all the way melts? Well, this cold water goes into the ocean, it gets in the conveyor belt, and the conveyor belt, it messes up the temperature of the water. And there's a thing under the water called a thermocline. My husband knows all about that because he's a scuba diver. But the thermocline is where the temperature changes. Underneath is where this methane hydrate, frozen methane gas is. So what my dad wanted me to make sure that I said on his behalf is that this methane gas, if that gets released more, then we're going to have a major methane problem. So let's look at the three main ways that we get methane in the environment, okay? Animal flatulence. Well, coal plants and then the ocean. Now, it looks like the ocean one is going to be a lot harder to control. So let's focus on animal flatulence and coal plants. Can we control those? Well, actually, there was a government-funded study, and actually there was one when I was a kid and another recent one, because I remember learning about it. They studied the flatulence of cows because they release a lot of methane. And there was a recent one that showed that when cows were fed healthier diets, vegetarian diets, then they had less flatulence. Cows are traditionally vegetarian. Feeding dead cows to cows or ground up brains or whatever it is they feed these cows is wrong, and it increases their flatulence. And that can lead to global warming. So let's feed the cows grass like they're meant to be fed. Once again, it all goes back to the farmer. Farmers are so important. Then there's the coal plants. Well, look at what the bankers are doing. The bankers are forming this global initiative to regulate methane, and they're investing in clean energy. So I'm not an economist, but if I had money to invest in anything, given my principles as well, I would invest in clean energy. Wind, solar, whatever it may be, geothermal, under the water vent fans, I don't even know. I would probably invest in that. But I am not giving you economic advice. So, is global warming a hoax? I don't know. I didn't decipher that today, okay? But what I did decipher is that the bankers are putting their money into clean energy. And if you are a conspiracy theorist and you do think it's a hoax, consider this. Consider the people, the elite, the global banking elite, the New World Order, whatever it is. Consider that they might actually be so bloated in their heads that they actually think that they can control it to the extent where they can reverse it right at the last minute. There are probably people that big-headed in the world that they think, okay, let's just make all this money on oil, tell them it's a hoax, invest in clean energy over here, and then once a bunch of people die and the economy's shot, we'll keep the rest of these people, around because we need them. And then they'll operate the plants for us, the clean energy plants, and, it'll be our new plutocracy or whatever. Just consider that possibility. So I think that farming sustainably is important. Support a farmer. Go and find a co-op. Look into the Weston A. Price Foundation. Those people are really cool for working with people and farmers. And then as far as the ocean cooling, like the methane hydrate, if it does come out, it bubbles up, it's 10 to 25 times more warming than CO2. So whereas some people are focusing on carbon credits, yeah, it probably is a scam. You know what I'm saying? But what about this methane? Like, maybe we should be focusing on that. Maybe it is a certain amount of misdirection. Keep your eyes peeled, keep your brains perked, and pay attention closely. Do the research yourself. I'm not sitting at the Arctic. I don't really know what's going on. But looking where the bankers put their money, that might always be a good clue.